Well, good morning, everybody. First of all, I apologize. I was a bit mysteriously absent last week, and I'm back now, and I'm going to get through a forecast week here. We've got a lot to, I think, talk about. This pattern continues to be much different than it was in October, and I want to kind of give you the latest. So in this video, I'm also going to be covering kind of a multi-model analysis on the potential for snow, given that you can see here the snow that was right here on the Front Range. Very easy to see here on the high plains last night. In fact, let's go take a closer look at it here. Kind of neat to just see the snowpack that was in this area. This was part of the reason why I missed a video with you last week. I missed several flights because we had to fly around that storm system, and I was getting in at 2 and 3 in the morning and had other responsibilities, so I apologize for that. But anyways, the rest of the video, at the end of this, I'm going to be talking about the new long-range data that we've seen updated from the European model and the NMME, so stick around for that at the very end. Okay, back to the snow really quickly here. It was interesting to look, just as the sun was trying to set last night, as the kind of more oblique angle gives you some shadows, right? You can now start to see some of the really quite amazing land formations that are in this part of the western and high plains, including, of course, these riverbeds in through here, and also just like these escarpments, and of course, here's the mountains. But it's just amazing to kind of look at all of this. And you can even see some jet contrail in here as well, coming over parts of the Rockies. But if we just take all of this and add it to the season-to-date snowfall, which begins on September 30th, you get a map like this. And again, this is on agweather.com. And what you've got here is that some of these places picked up, as you saw, several inches of snow. And now, they're here above the 1 foot mark. This was a major, major winter storm. And again, I apologize for being a bit absent last week and not presenting on it as it curled its way out here and then moved across the rest of the country. Speaking about moving across the rest of the country, these last 2 weeks have been a far cry from what they were back in September and October. We're looking here at total accumulated precipitation. And you have to be careful when you look at this map because your eye is typically drawn to those places that have been really wet, like parts of Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Arkansas, Missouri, parts of Illinois, Louisiana, even parts of the Southeast picked up on the tail end of a front last week, some heavy precipitation. But I want you to see kind of the holes in this, like those in the Southwest, or these up here in the Canadian Prairie into the northern plains of the United States, where we've not really been able to get quite enough moisture back into place because of the way the flow has kind of shifted itself. So that's why I like to look at the ranks maps. These, I think, just really bring out that contrast. So since the start of November, we can see parts of the Southwest. There's this section of the northern plains getting back into Montana. And then the majority of the mid-Atlantic, really starting in North Carolina all the way to Maine, has been extremely dry. So the Northeast continues to build on the drought. Meanwhile, for parts of the southern plains, this has been the wettest start to any November on record. Again, our records are back to 1893. And you can see the heavy rains that were added on here in Georgia and South Carolina, which the last time they saw rain before this would have been from Hurricane Helene. Just incredible map showing you the flip in this pattern. It did a lot to change our soil moisture. This was what it looked like before this pattern really set in. So we're going to go way back to October 21st, and then we're going to go right to the newest map. And so what I want to remind everybody about is this. I've talked to several growers this past weekend about, really, most of them are in Illinois, but it doesn't matter. They were talking about how, with all of that rain, how quickly it soaked in and how they still don't have tile running. And I'm just curious if any of you want to leave a comment in the video about how this moisture worked, in your opinion, against the drought that's been going on in the middle part of the country. Please let me know. I'd like to hear that because certainly it continues here in the northern plains. We have pockets in the southeast. And again, the whole of the northeast really has not seen a breakaway from drought. And we're waiting on the flow of the atmosphere to shift itself around to give us any sort of subtropical jet to start to bring some moisture into the southwest. But some of this water did finally get into the Mississippi, and you can see here that it's made a pretty nice jump. It's now almost 4 feet above low stage after spending some time about 10 feet below low stage. And given the upcoming forecasts, there is pretty good evidence that this is going to continue to rise and get us back here in this, maybe back up to this mark, excuse me, I think pretty soon here as we go through the rest of November and on into the winter time period. What will be the slowest to change is the drought monitor, and it's designed that way. So I know I've said that 1,000 times, but I want to make sure I'm pretty clear on this. As it stands, we've got like 87% of, in fact, let's just go look at the data real quick. Look at a time series, grab the very end of this, and there we go. Yeah, 87.78% of the country is in some form of drought. That includes the abnormally dry category. We've got about 52% in D1 to D4. And as you come back and just look at the current map, we really have very limited areas that have not been touched by this fall drought that has been quite deep in some spots. If we do look at one other thing, let's go to the comparison slider. Just to make a point here, we go back to the one that was released on October 29th and compare it to the one that was released last Thursday. Even though there was a lot of rain between these two dates, you'll just notice that the drought monitor doesn't change quickly, right? So this was the 29th, that's the 5th. So all of that rain that came in through here still didn't work against the longer term statistic of how the drought monitor is calculated. So just want to make you all aware of that. It was interesting. Yesterday afternoon, I was driving around with my son, and on the radio came kind of a pretty famous song for November, right? There's the song by, it's called The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. I can't think of the guy's name. Gordon Lightfoot, my goodness. Okay, so I decided, we were talking about it. My son was like, this is a weird song. I'm like, no, it's a fantastic song. It's kind of, for meteorologists, it's like a core song to our entire field. But anyway, that was yesterday. The anniversary of that was yesterday on the 10th. And so I went back and I'm like, all right, what made that November the way it was? And this is critical. I want you to see this. 1975, my parents had just gotten married. This is something that is quite interesting. Look at the depth of this cold air that was in the Arctic coming through the Bering Sea into Alaska and the Gulf of Alaska. If there was ridging, it was way over here coming off of Mongolia, China, this part of Russia. And there was a highly amplified pattern, including a ridge that set up in the days before that massive windstorm that hit Lake Superior. If you don't know it, go listen to the song. It tells you the whole story. And it was right here. And so what happened is the atmosphere had to come around this and make this hard turn. In fact, I zoomed in on it because I wanted you to really see this. Look at the depth of that trough extending with all of this cold air and the warm up that was ahead of it. And I bring this up because that's what makes low pressure systems as powerful as they can be. It's the contrast. You've got to have brutally cold air running into really warm air, and in between, you get what we call a baroclinic zone. That's just one of the pieces of it. What it really does is it drives this thing called the thermal wind, and that's what accelerates the jet stream. And if you get the jet stream cranking, what you end up getting in the upper levels of the atmosphere is this area where the air just spreads out aloft because of the speed, and it's got to be replaced. And so what happens is it comes swirling in at the bottom, comes up and out like that. And that is the setup you want if you want to make a monstrous winter storm in November over Lake Superior. It's right in between. You're going, wait a minute, I see white. Yeah, when you look at the upper levels of the atmosphere, it's the in-between. There's the ridge, there's the trough. It's the in-between where the low pressure center forms. And this was an absolutely massive one. Now, I show you all that because I want to take you to this. This is where we've been. So you'll notice that over the Arctic this year, there's comparatively some more mild air. So we've been able to get a pretty active pattern. I mean, we've got pieces of this, like, look, there's a ridge setting up here. But the troughs that have come out of, Canada or the Gulf of Alaska or the Bering Sea, they've not been as deep. And what I mean by that is they've not just been locked into like true winter type air yet. Now that could change, and it likely will. But what I'm interested in watching is how this trough ridge pattern, which is doing something like this, is going to evolve as we work our way through the rest of this month. Because I like the amplitude of this. I like seeing these big waves moving. I don't want to see big stuck ridges in place, which is what's been a concern of mine for a while. Now, certainly, this is a ridge that's been hard to move out, and that's why the Northeast and the East Coast has been so dry as of late. But dipping troughs in here like this, have you noticed they've been cutting off over the four corner states? I've said that a lot. That's because they're not anchored to truly deep air just to kind of shove them on off to the east as quickly as we possibly can. So if you want to know what I'm waiting on seeing change, it's the temperature pattern across the northerly latitudes of the world here. Okay, so one more thing. Back in 1975, when we had the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald on Lake Superior, take note of this. Look how cold the equatorial Pacific was. Look how cold it was off the Baja of California. We call that our PMM region, Pacific Meridional Mode. And this is what you call a classic, almost perfect, negative PDO setup. That is where you have warm water here and a cold reverse C shape around it. Okay, that's the way that the PDO is best seen in ocean temperatures. But this La Nina was cranking already. It was quite strong. In fact, if you go back over time, that was the La Nina of 1975. So it was only beat, I guess, by the one in 73 into 74. So this was kind of a double dip La Nina. So you say, well, why is everything so warm now? Well, we're not here. We're way up there. And this is all one linked system, right? The oceans are a linked, system of movement. And so when you're going, well, we just can't get colder in the Arctic. Well, no, we can't. We just came off of an El Nino. Like this is a whole different regime in the pattern. So we look at it now and say, all right, what do we have? Well, we have our La Nina going. Lately, there's been some cooler water here and some cooler water coming off of the Baja. I've made a case that this is the big story here, this warmth. And what that warmth is doing is it's driving the very negative PDO we've got right now. Now, I'm going to come back to this at the very end of what this might mean. But as of October 2024, the PDO value was minus 3.81. Back in 1975, in October, it was minus 1.59. Now, why is the PDO so much more negative now, given that the ocean temperatures back then were so much colder along this area? It's all about contrast. It just wasn't quite warm enough here compared to where it is now. So that's what's driving this as I think about it. Now, in the near term, I've noticed this. One of my favorite websites here, this one that looks at what's called the NPJ, the North Pacific Jet. It's a phase diagram. And it had shifted poleward, and the forecast is to take it back over toward Japan. Now you're going, what in the world is this? Okay, if we just kind of look at it, the poleward side is here, the equatorward side is here. The jet extension means that the jet gets all the way over to the west coast easily, or if it's a retraction, its greatest speeds are over here. That's what we're looking at. This is a 4-phase diagram. And I think that what's important about understanding that is we're getting a bit of a pullback in these kind of permanent deep trough features that we've seen over the west and in the Gulf of Alaska as of late. So over the next 15 days, where's all the really, really cold air? Well, in 1975, this was way over here. See the difference? And now it's just driving these deep troughs into parts of Eastern Europe, into Western Russia. And what we've got here is a Pacific ridge that's living just to the north and west of Hawaii. And it's what's helping deliver multiple low pressure systems coming into the west, but they're not quite to the depth as they have been. And because they're coming with a bit more of a regular cadence, you'll see that a 15-day average doesn't show a stuck pattern. Now, if you want to know why I show you this map, because you're going to look at it with me all winter long, is I look at this map to find where there are features that are kind of semi-permanent over a 2-week time period. Like this big ridge and that one, that trough. That's what we're looking for. So if you don't see strong contrast in colors, it probably means the pattern's open and moving. And I want you to see that here, okay? Because over the next 7 days, this is our next forecast. And while it continues to be a bit drier in the plains, drier in the Canadian prairie, drier in the southwest, including this part of Texas, we see still drier conditions that are in Florida going up the east coast. We still see a pattern that's coming into the northwest and ejecting through the southern plains, really the mid-south going toward the Midwest and Great Lakes. And I want to show you what's going to be creating that. So let's get into this. All right, upper level heights first. We're going to use the AIFS. I found this model to do quite well lately. So as we play this forward, here's our next system coming in already. There's 2 of them stacked up in the Pacific, 1, 2. And there's going to be a big warm up out ahead of this, and then it's going to kick off a low. See how it almost gets kind of weakly cut off here. It's a little short wave, not a big one here, that comes through the central plains. I'll show you the precip on that. That goes over to the mid-Atlantic. We could get some moisture out of this. And already by Friday, the next deep low is in the west coast. And that one comes in, followed by yet another. Then a ridge comes in the middle. And then we get another system curling up over the Great Lakes. And by the way, this is one we're going to watch. Where are we in time? It's way out there. This is all the way out November 22nd. But that is the kind of low pressure system that if it is a robust system and it's going to really consistently show up in the model, that's a big windstorm over the Great Lakes. I got to watch that one very carefully as we go forward here. But you'll just notice I keep playing the pattern and I don't see any features that just get permanently stuck. And you may have missed it, but if I come back here, way back to the beginning, there's an interesting little feature right here showing up in the models. And the National Hurricane Center is on top of this as well. They've given a 40% chance for, yet again, more tropical cyclone development here in the Caribbean Gyre or the Central American Gyre. This has been a very active place for us this fall. And if you look at the weather forecast models, let's let this reset. Keep an eye right here. See this coming through? The forecast ensemble members, while the spread is large, some of them are bringing it back through the Yucatan Strait and into the Gulf of Mexico. So I want to let you know I'll be watching that one pretty carefully as well. Now today, as we get into the day, there's not a whole lot of chaos going on just yet. We've got a few areas where there's some stronger winds. We've got winter weather advisories that are out for parts of the Sierra Nevada and Cascades, also this part of the Rockies, some fog issues down south, and then again, some stronger winds up here around Lake Superior. But if you look at the wind system that's coming through, there's those strong winds around Lake Superior and Lake Michigan. Big Atlantic high, that's the Bermuda high living here. But these are the next two loaded up that are coming into the U.S. So I want to get in and have a look at them. Let's go to the high-res NAM first, okay? As we play this forward, there we go. Through the middle of the day today, got some snow that leaves Ontario, goes into Quebec. High air pressure builds in behind this. Some lake enhancement coming off the Great Lakes. But you'll notice that in the west, the frontal boundary from the first of two systems comes through, brings in some mountain snows. Could be bringing some rain into the Sacramento Valley as well. I'm actually heading out here at the end of the week, to the Tri-Cities. I'll be going next week to Coeur d'Alene. That's a beautiful place to visit. But anyway, Monday night, getting into Tuesday, high pressure dominates over the Great Lakes and around its edge. See this? That first of these two systems moves out and starts to bring chances of rain by Tuesday night and Wednesday morning into the midsection of the country. At this point, the next front has already hit. That's from that second system, this guy over here. That one has hit parts of the Northwest, and it comes through. Now, do we have a chance this week of some storms in the southern plains? Yes, we do. Is it going to be a large organized setup for severe weather? I don't see that just yet. I want to tell you about some changes I'm making on ag weather. I'm going to be rewriting some of the algorithms to make the snow stuff for the ECMWF. So in its place for a little while, I'm going to show you the national blend of models. And over the next 7 days, this is what the forecast is looking like in terms of total snow from the NBM. And most of this is going to be in the western U.S., as you can see here. Some pretty good snows expected as these troughs come in the Sierra Nevada. This will be some of the first good snow in the Sierra Nevada this year. Cascades are getting loaded up, so are the northern Rockies here as well. Much less in the central and southern Rockies, just given the trajectory of each one of these new troughs. But it is important. We're going to look at this several times this winter. This is a map that shows you by basin how we compare to the historical averages for snow water equivalents. In other words, if you melt all that snow down, what do you get out of it? Notice that while the Sierra Nevadas have not picked up much, neither have the part of the central and northern Rockies, the southern Rockies, and a lot of the Intermountain West, the Great Basin, the Cascades, really got hit pretty hard lately, and that's why they're showing these relatively high numbers. To be honest with you, these numbers are most important in February, because February to March will determine, I think, how we set up with the rest of our water year in the West. So we'll just keep looking at this, but pay much more close attention to it later. Okay, so on to the European model. A couple of things here. You will not see blue on this, and that's because the new simulations I'm running here, I don't have a precipitation type algorithm in them just yet. So there will be snow, but it's going to show up as just total precip. But let's watch where this all goes. So this is through Tuesday. We've already talked about this front coming through. There we go on Wednesday, moves out into the plains. We then watch where this is going to go with the next system behind it. Again, we could see some storms south later this week. That system rolls east, bringing in some moisture into the southeast, while the system behind it curls up into Canada. So let's just rock through the end of this week here, Wednesday through Friday. There you go. Now beyond that, we get into the weekend, and a much deeper low begins to form and roll up here into southern Manitoba. It seems to not have a lot of moisture with it on Sunday, maybe because of the position of this high. In other words, with the high sitting here, it's drawing air from the west, not from the Gulf, and so it's not able to wrap up Gulf moisture into that low. But that would be on Sunday going forward. And then I'm going to be watching Monday and Tuesday of next week, because the models dip a couple of different troughs into the west, one into the southern plains that opens up into a very windy situation with also some really, really heavy precipitation possible. Just talking about those winds, we'll see if we can find them in the GFS as well. The GFS still has its precipitation type flag, so you'll start to see where the snow is. But the timing on these first two systems is about the same. Did you notice that? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right into the midsection of the country. Thursday, start to get some of this in the east, mid-Atlantic, eastern Great Lakes. Next trough dips into the west. Here's Friday. Saturday. Now watch. Next week, these two models look nothing alike. Notice they bring out a system here. That's still the same. But the GFS is like cranked on snow. Look at that snow. And the European model does not have it. I mean, it's talking like full-on blizzard situation here, the GFS is. It was in the 0Z run too. This is the 6Z. Now, again, when is this? This is the 19th, 20th. And by the way, the GFS also takes whatever that tropical system is and takes it into Florida. Now, we have to be careful. We know that the GFS is a model that after about 6 or 7 days goes to high amplitude. It just does. It goes right straight to high amplitude. In other words, big systems that come out. So I want to be very careful with it because this is what the European model 10-day snowfall looks like, and this is the GFS. So I just want to let you know there are major model differences right now with this in the midsection of the country. Okay, on to probabilities. Chance of getting another inch of moisture out of the next 10 days is shown here. It really shows a lot of contrast if I flip over to who's drier. Now you can see the Southwest, Western Texas, Southern Texas, Mexico, getting into the Canadian Prairie, the North and Western Plains. Florida, we're waiting on more moisture coming out in the Northeast is dry as well. But if we flip it up to the really wet spots, these are the chances that have the best shot at 2 inches. And the Pacific Northwest, right here along the coast, very, very wet as we go forward. All right, I want to talk briefly about the winds just to show you. Let's get the newest update here. There we go. We got some strong winds. Sorry, that played kind of fast. With each of these fronts, these are maximum wind gusts. And I'm going to be watching carefully that system early next week, adding on some really strong winds in the Central Plains. Throughout the Southwest, parts of the Great Basin, maybe even the Columbia Basin, we're looking at some stronger winds. The strongest are offshore, though. But there's the chance in the midsection of the country here of getting 40 to 50 mile an hour gusts out of each of these next 3 systems coming through. Remember, it is only the GFS 6Z run that's trying to do this. We'll have to talk more about that as the week goes on. All right, so that gets us to week 2. I told you the pattern's moving. There's nothing crazy stuck about it, and so we still see better precip chances in the central part of the United States. I will note that it is the artificial intelligence that's most aggressive on bringing rainfall to the East Coast, which we know is very dry. And it does appear that in all 3 models, there's going to be a bit of a reset next week for the Northwest, slowing the pattern down a little bit, bringing in more ridging, which is why we see less precipitation there. More ridging means the flow goes north-south, not west-east. Okay? All right, temperatures, then long range, and we'll wrap this up. Frost risk over the next 7 days shown here. So everywhere that's in that gray shading has got the risk of a frost. If we take a look at these high temperatures, again, I'm kind of working on my new map scheme here, but here's today's highs compared to average, and tomorrow on Tuesday, getting into Wednesday, cool down for the East Coast. Watch the cold weather come in the west late this week while the Midwest and central United States warms up. That's Thursday into Friday. See this big warm up? That's the next deep low. Quite cold in the west. That's Saturday, and here's Sunday. I mean, this just screams this. Okay. Get out there, day 5 through 10. We still see that same type pattern, and day 10 through 15 looks something like this. So just remember, it's common this time of year to be 9 or 10 degrees cooler than average over a stretch. We don't see that a lot during the summer months, but we've certainly got it here. All right, let's wrap it up. Long range. The CPC released this on Friday. I completely buy into it. This makes a ton of sense to me given the way things have shaped up in the Pacific Ocean. I think the pattern's open and moving. I agree a lot about this especially because the newest European model's got a little different flavor on it. It's trying to bring in this large Pacific high here with a higher than normal heights farther to the north. So all the way to December 20th, it's trying to bring in a lot of high pressure into the western United States. I bring that up because if you look at the 30-day forecast or the precip anomalies, it's very dry there. And I'm not 100% sure that it's going to be as dry as advertised in that area. I just think that the model is it's kind of missed the placement of this. And it missed it on the recent forecast. We've had better moisture in the west, not in the southwest, but in the west and the northwest than otherwise. So I think the model's got a bias too dry here. All right. From there, I do want to show you back to where we began, right? Remember we talked about the Edmund Fitzgerald? Well, I'm going to talk to you about that PDO again. If you look during November to March, when we have a Pacific decadal oscillation that's negative, we tend to keep a ridge somewhere between Alaska and Hawaii. Tends to be there more often than not. And that's what tends to drive our overall jet stream pattern like this. I bring that up because I want you to see that the new European model continues to forecast a weak La Nina. This is the heart of winter, January, February, March. But it's got such warm conditions here that it's driving that kind of reverse C shape of some cooler conditions. And that's that negative PDO signal. It's not the strongest, but it's there. I bring that up because as we go in here and zoom in on North America and I show you the precipitation, let's take it back here. Oh, that's by month. I want seasonal. There we go. This would be what it's got for December, January, February. And can you see the kind of reflection of where they may be putting that Pacific high? So the flow comes over the top and turns. And look, if we go back to it, that's very similar to what we just saw. And it's also drier in the same areas that the model is drier. I'm bringing this up because I think it's one of the most dominant things that's influencing the forecast. And I'm not 100% sure that we are going to just park a ridge and leave it here. And the reason I say that is because we haven't done that yet. Like, it's not happened yet that we've got a big ridge. So I'm not as dire in terms of the predictions for dry conditions here, southern plains, and even the southeast going forward. But I do want to show you. If I told you the European model bit into this, wait until you see the NMME. The NMME has this for December, January, February. Massive dry spot here, dry across the whole southern tier of the United States. And I think it's being strongly forced by the both the La Nina and the negative PDO. So we just have questions, and they just come back to those ocean temperatures to say, is it really a year that high pressure is going to live here? Climatologically, you'd have to say yes. But I don't think that this year is, even though the PDO is so negative, it seems to me that it's being influenced more by the heat that's off Japan into the North Central Pacific than the cold along the West Coast. Okay? So I'm going to have to watch it, but I think these are the things we're going to have to pay attention to. Lastly, just want to give you a quick global update. Take note of how wet it is in Western Australia, parts of Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, especially the eastern sides of those provinces. Or what do they call them? I don't know. Provinces? States? Got to look that up. Where that deep trough is, look how dry it's going to be here in this part of Russia, but all along the periphery, wet. And into South America, just want to show you the next 10 days. This is what we've got in terms of precipitation. In fact, we should go look this up. IMEA. Let's go here. And no. Sorry. There it is. I want that link. There we go. This is planting progress for soybeans in Mato Grosso. Wow, they're now ahead of where they were last year. And just to show you again, there's the moisture that's coming, and it's coming back in. It filled in some of the holes in southern Brazil, Argentina. Just going to tell you, I'm worried about dryness down here later on. Okay, that was a lot today, but I had a lot to catch up on. So talk to you tomorrow. Thanks.